Have you ever heard of Benito Juarez, the world's most secret liberal reformer? This Mexican statesman fought tirelessly for democracy, equality, and justice in Mexico during the 19th century. His legacy continues to inspire people around the world today. Despite being born into a poor indigenous family in the state of Oaxaca in 1806, facing discrimination and poverty throughout his life, Juarez's determination and passion for justice led him to become a lawyer and, eventually, the President of Mexico. This video will explore Juarez's extraordinary life and legacy, including the disrupting reforms he implemented as president that set Mexico on the path to become a modern and progressive nation. We'll discuss how Juarez abolished slavery, separated church and state, and established a democratic government that gave power to the people. Benito Juarez was the first indigenous person to serve as president of Mexico and the first to be elected in a free and fair election. Juarez was born in 1806 in the village of San Pablo Guelatao in Oaxaca, Mexico. By the rule of his local customs, he grew up speaking Zapotec, his native language, and, right away, had to face many challenges in his early life, including poverty, discrimination, and a lack of access to education. Juarez served 5 terms as president from 1858 to 1872, and during this time, he implemented a series of liberal reforms that transformed Mexico into a modern country. He worked to abolish the privileges of the Catholic Church, which had dominated Mexican politics for centuries, and promoted religious freedom. Benito Juarez is often called a secret liberal reformer because of the simple fact that he, for a long time, did not openly advertise his liberal views and reforms. In fact, he faced significant opposition from conservative factions in Mexican society who opposed his ideas and forced him to navigate political challenges and hurdles throughout his life. However, despite these challenges, Juarez remained committed to implementing his liberal reforms, which eventually led to Mexico's modernization. 1858, his presidency. Juarez's secret approach to his liberal reforms was born out of necessity. He was a prominent member of the Liberal Party and became president in 1858 during a period of political turmoil and instability. Juarez had to face significant challenges in his efforts to modernize Mexico and create a more democratic and inclusive society. At that time, Mexico was deeply divided by various factions competing for political power and influence, leading to a short but intense rule by a foreign sovereign, Maximilian of Habsburg, from 1864 to 1867. Juarez recognized that open advocacy for his liberal views could provoke a backlash from conservative forces, potentially derailing his intentions of modernization. Instead, he adopted a more subtle approach, gradually introducing new laws and regulations while working to build coalitions and alliances that would support his efforts. 1859. Separating church and state. The separation of church and state was one of his most important reforms. In Mexico, the Catholic Church had long played a dominant role in politics and society, controlled education, and owned vast amounts of land, all while enjoying privileges such as the exemption from taxation. Juarez believed that the Church's power was a threat to democracy and individual rights. He confiscated church property and abolished the legal status of religious orders, ensuring that the Church would not be able to interfere in the affairs of state. Another of his great contributions was the creation of a secular education system in Mexico. Education had long been under the control of the Catholic Church, and Juarez believed that a secular education system was necessary to promote democracy and social progress. He created a system of free, compulsory, and secular education that aimed to provide all citizens with the skills and knowledge they needed to fully participate in civic life. His comprehensive vision for building his nation is manifested by his educational reforms, which he believed were key to promoting social and economic progress in the country. His education system was accessible to all Mexicans, regardless of their social or economic status, and focused on areas such as agriculture, literature, and science. 1861. Breaking the chains of slavery. Slavery had been legal in Mexico since the Spanish conquest in the 16th century and was a deeply entrenched institution. Juarez believed that slavery was immoral and that it violated the basic principles of human rights. In 1861, he issued the Ley de Libertad de la Raza, the law of freedom for all races, which abolished slavery in Mexico 4 years earlier than in the United States. The law declared over 200,000 enslaved people as free, but provided compensation to slave owners for their loss of property. The law further prohibited debt peonage, a system in which slaves were forced to work off debts owed to their employers, which was basically a form of indentured servitude. Juarez's abolition of slavery was a significant step forward for the country. By recognizing the inherent dignity and worth of all human beings, Juarez helped to pave the way for a more just and equitable society. Mexico has a long and complex history of colonialism, slavery, and discrimination against its indigenous people. Throughout most of Mexico's history, indigenous communities were forcibly enslaved and subjected to discrimination and exploitation. Even after the country gained independence from Spain in 1821, indigenous people continued to face discrimination and marginalization, and their rights are often being ignored to this day. 1862, defying the French invasion. Juarez played a key role in resisting foreign interventions in Mexico. In the mid-19th century, Mexico was in a state of political turmoil and became a target of foreign aggressors. In 1861, France invaded Mexico, seeking to establish a European-style monarchy with the support of conservative Mexican elites who opposed Juarez's reforms. However, he and his supporters continued to resist the foreign occupation. With the help of their American allies, they eventually defeated the French army and successfully restored Juarez to power in 1867. During this time, he famously said, "Entre los individuos, como entre las naciones, el respeto al derecho ajeno es la paz," which can be translated to, "Among individuals, as among nations, respect for the rights of others is peace." Holding true to his words, Juarez refused to engage in violent resistance during the entire time of the French occupation. Instead, he negotiated with their commander, General Foray, trying to find a peaceful solution to the conflict. Although the negotiations were ultimately unsuccessful, Juarez's willingness to engage in diplomatic efforts rather than resorting to immediate violence demonstrated his commitment to peaceful conflict resolution and justice. Not to forget, in 1867, under Juarez's leadership, Mexico abolished the death penalty for political crimes and reduced the power of the military, thus promoting greater civilian control over government affairs. As you can hopefully see, Benito Juarez was a remarkable leader who overcame incredible obstacles to transform Mexico into a modern, democratic nation. His legacy as the first indigenous president of Mexico, his liberal reforms, and his resistance to foreign intervention continues to inspire people around the world. Despite the challenges he faced, Juarez never lost sight of his commitment to democracy, human rights, and social justice, leaving a lasting legacy that continues to shape Mexico and the world today.